Hi, it's Chris with Implied Music. Listen, I just did a video on pulse and tempo, meter and subdivision. Today I want to look at how our DAWs tools, things like step sequencers, arpeggiators, LFOs, all these things that generate clocks and create events can integrate with that idea. I've made a little piece, we'll talk through it. This is really just scraping the surface, but it's interesting what you get when you scrape the surface. Here's my piece. I'll just tell you right at the top, it's conceived at 80 beats a minute, and my time signature is 4/4, but we've done some interesting subdivision tricks some places, and we'll talk about how LFOs and arpeggiators and step sequencers all play a part in that. Okay, so here's our two little interesting percolating patterns. The asteroids part is from Imagine, and it's got some echo. The bass part is two arpeggiators on different things. There's a little piano part on top, but listen to what happens here with these drums. I've taken a drum part and divided each quarter note pulse into 5 equal parts instead of 4, which is what the other sequencers were doing. It gives this kind of like lurching but regular feel. Fascinating. 5. The subdivision is 5. And now the subdivision is back to 4. I'm using a standard sort of slow jam logic drum part. And this funny little square pusher part in here is a Vital synth whose LFOs I've done some tricks with. We'll take a look at that. I'm really interested in how these things interrelate with each other. We drop back down into the subdivision of 4, and that square pusher part is gone. I do love that keyboard part, don't you? I can tell you this, the melody in that keyboard part is essentially pushing towards the 5 rather than the 4 subdivision. And here, it starts off doubling the square pusher line, which is a 4 subdivision. The drums are divided in 5. And now the piano part's going to go to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we're back to 4, which feels more settled. It's a little bit easier on us. Great, right? Let's take a look at these individual parts. Okay, first of all, this double bass part. There really are 2 analog synths, and each of them has an arpeggiator built in. Here they are together, and I want you to look at the way I've set them up. They're playing the same note, and it's stepping through the note, but how many steps in this one? 8. How many steps in this one? 10. Interesting. The basic rate here is 16th notes. The basic rate here is 8th notes. Watch as I just hold down this G. These 2 patterns are of differing lengths, and they create what's called interference of periodicity. A length is the period of time it takes for it to cycle. So the rhythm has this shifting, syncopated quality. Listen, it's hard to get instrumentalists to deal with something like, oh, you're going to be playing in 5/8, well, you're going to be playing in 8/8 or 4/4, because they don't interact until they come around again 40 beats later, right? Interesting. All right, let's take a look at this asteroids patch, which is an Imagine synth whose step sequencer, you can see it here, has a length and emphasis. So I'll just play that same G, an octave up. And it's creating another sort of 16th note pulse. The accents are coming from this shaped LFO down here. That shaped LFO percolates in an interesting way. And if I really wanted to create more chaos, I could change the length of one of the step sequencers, couldn't I? And I would get a whole different kind of thing going on. Well, that's all well and good. Now here's my trick with the polybeat. I've used a program, Contact, loading Sonic Couture's drums. And Sonic Couture, on top of making great samples, also has a number of things they call beat tools. Now, what I've done with the beat tools here is create a beat whose step length is 20 steps. And that gives me a nice, solid vibe within things. So here we go. And those 20 steps within the measure divide perfectly to, say, 10 and then 5, right? I was able to just grab this MIDI file and drag it into my timeline, and here you see it, and that's what's playing. This is a beautiful, just a really interesting effect. You go from what feels like something that's quite stable to something that feels unstable. You really feel them here, and then suddenly 5. All right, the last element here is this interesting sort of, I guess, kind of an interior line. And this is from the free Vital synth, a synth which is just fantastic. For a free synth, I'm super impressed by it. So the Vital synth is doing something really fun. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4 LFOs all doing something different. In fact, the LFO is running on pitch. So you see the pitch going up every time it steps. And here, same type of thing. Everything changed. The bottom line. The big thing that you can hear happening, obviously, here is the 2 melodies at the same time, the bottom melody and the top melody. And they're irregular in an interesting way, aren't they? I just love this effect. And this is, I modified an existing preset. Super impressed by that. Well, the overall effect is one of sort of an unsettled, driving quality. Let's listen to the whole thing one more time. Easy subdivision, and you feel the 16ths. That little melodic change from chord to chord gives you a relaxed feeling, and then the relax changes because suddenly we discover that that little melody was on a 5 subdivision. My ear thought it was a triplet, but of course we're dividing the measure in 5. Questlove is an example of somebody who's great at doing this thing that we're doing in the drums here, live as a performer. This feels so plain Jane after the 5/4 or the 5 subdivision, doesn't it? I guess we'd have to call it a quintuplet. Is that what it would be? I guess so. Probably worse than that. Just a question of how we subdivide the measure. For those of you following along at home, this section is basically G, E minor, and then this section is G Locrian. So I've used harmonic tricks to create a little more unsettled energy. So I guess what I'd say is explore these tricks on your own. When you have a step sequencer, you can do something like set it to differing lengths from the length of the measure. Easy interference of periodicity. If you can figure out a way to divide your measure in 20 equal bits, or 5, 4 times 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, you can get a really interesting effect. Every quarter note divided in 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, instead of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Very different world and an interesting rhythmic trick. Subdivision is probably the center of what I'm the most interested in rhythmic exploration and composition. Things like changing tempo and changing meter certainly do appeal to me, but I'm fascinated by the interaction of regular parts whose interactions are not squared off to each other necessarily. And that's kind of what we're doing here. Well, more on this later. I hope it's been useful. Like and subscribe, ding the bell. I hope you'll get notifications. I think you will. I'll see you next time.